So there's an old saying, and it's right at the bottom of the screen. The most popular person in town is the backup quarterback. And I've heard this one for years, and I always got a chuckle out of it. I wasn't quite old enough to remember what the dynamics of Young versus Montana were. Obviously, with Montana having a couple Super Bowl titles under his belt by the time that Young arrived in 1987, I assume that Joe had some fierce loyalty based on all the stories I hear from that era. There was fierce loyalty in both camps, Joe and Steve. But this situation with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo and Lance's game one outcome, I don't want to say struggles because it was an outcome and there was a lot of nuance to it. This situation is different. And this situation, I believe, puts this adage, the most popular person in the city is the backup quarterback. It puts this adage under the spotlight unlike ever before, because we've gotten a perfect case study for it, right? We rewind to 2021 where the 49ers have both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. And hell, why don't we even just rewind to 2020 when the 49ers had Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Mullins? And there were literally people, there are receipts out there. There were literally people that were saying that Nick Mullins would be a better option than Jimmy Garoppolo. So maybe we should just preface this entire discussion with that. There were people who have a lot of followers who were saying that the gap between Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Mullins wasn't that big, and the 49ers should, think about starting Nick Mullins in 2020. We can preface this crazy, nauseating, over-the-top, knee-jerk reaction to Trey Lance's Week 1 performance with that. If there are people, praising Nick Mullins after one game in 2020, we see how silly that looked in retrospect. Maybe we should take whatever we hear now with a grain of salt. Anyway, back to what's underneath me on the screen. 2021, 49ers have both Garoppolo and Lance. The most popular person in 49ers kingdom as far as fans and social media goes is Trey Lance, right? Every single time Jimmy Garoppolo slightly misses a pass, hey, even if Jimmy Garoppolo does something that's not his fault, if there's a negative, everybody wanted to see Trey Lance. Not everybody, but you guys get it. I'm just, speaking from the figure of speech. Trey Lance was the darling. Everybody wanted Trey. Everybody hated Jimmy. I'm speaking in generalities just to prove a point. Well, the reason that we've gotten such a fascinating case study here is because Lance and Garoppolo have literally flipped positions. They've traded places in 2022. So now all of a sudden you have the reverse going on, and it seems that the ebbs and flows have gotten even more violent. Trey Lance starter in game one. Jimmy Garoppolo is now the man of the moment for so many people online. Oh, well, the 49ers lost the game. It doesn't matter if it happened in a rainstorm. It doesn't matter if it was Trey Lance's fault. But the backup quarterback is the most popular person in town. Let's, start saying that the 49ers need to, just make a rash, knee-jerk move just because we say so. It was that way last season, and it was wrong. Jimmy Garoppolo should have been starting all of last season. And right now, I don't know what the right move for the 49ers is. I do know what their plan is, but I definitely know that it's not right to be encouraging rash decisions in the face of a long-term plan. And that's all that the internet is about. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I have several things that I want to say, but the top one is that these hysterical Trey Lance overreactions are a bit much because we knew that this was going to be a long-term process. You could disagree with the 49ers long-term plan here, but at least acknowledge it. And I feel that out of all of the extreme takes online, there's no acknowledgement of the fact that the 49ers have a long-term plan in place at quarterback. And this is a long-term plan that went back all the way to last year when they decided to trade up to number 3 to grab Trey Lance. The long-term plan, again, if I have to repeat it, was for Jimmy Garoppolo to start 2021, even though they picked Trey Lance. They knew that somebody coming out of college with only 318 pass attempts would be so raw that he needed some time to acclimate. 21 years old, he would need some time to acclimate at the NFL level before actually playing. Maybe he'd get his feet wet in a backup role if Jimmy got hurt. That did happen twice last year. Jimmy Garoppolo missed the games against Arizona, and then he missed the game against Houston. But for all intents and purposes, the 49ers plan was for Garoppolo to start 2021, and then assuming that it, went the way that they thought it would, which they knew they had a chance to win the Super Bowl last year, right? Jimmy gave them that best chance. I think if the 49ers had won the actual Super Bowl, QB politics might have kicked in. Jimmy probably would have had to start the 2022 season, but that would have been a good problem to have. Guess what? It did not happen. Since it didn't happen, they made it to the NFC Championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo had a good season. Trey Lance had, by all accounts, a productive season, getting his feet wet behind the scenes, really learning how to live at the NFL level. Since that happened, the plan progressed, and the long-term plan heading into 2022 was for Trey Lance. Oop, camera went off here on me. 1 second, guys. Let's see if I can get this fixed. All right, we're back aboard. So the long-term plan would be for Trey Lance to start in 2022. Now, the long-term plan didn't just end with week 1 of the 2022 season. In fact, the long-term plan only gets more complicated this season because you have different parts of Trey Lance's development, right? Year 1, not really playing, was just the initial crash course. He wasn't ready to see an NFL field yet with a good roster. He could have tanked that roster. He was way too rough last year. But at a certain point, he's got to play to reach the potential that the 49ers see in him. And the potential that they see in him is somebody who can run like Lamar Jackson and throw like Drew Brees. That's the ceiling. Nobody's saying that he's going to get to that ceiling, but Kyle Shanahan wants mobility. He wants to change the box count. He wants to change the way that he can attack opposing defenses. All right, so how do you get Trey to that spot? Well, he's got to play in real games at some point. So whereas in year 1, it didn't make sense, in year 2, the 49ers, in their long-term plan, whether you agree with it or not, we're going to ease Trey Lance into playing time in year 2. The problem is that easing into playing time in the NFL is really an oxymoron. It's going to start fast. You hit that treadmill and it's already moving 20 miles an hour. So they start Trey Lance in 2022. Now, this long-term plan is predicated on Trey Lance improving as the season progresses. The 49ers didn't think that he would be his realized self in week 1. In fact, I don't even think that they factored in Trey Lance being better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. I think if you had to say who's the better 49ers quarterback right now, more efficiency, better chance to win a game, it probably is Jimmy Garoppolo. But that's why I'm emphasizing the long-term plan, the long game. The 49ers think that if Trey Lance gets ample development, if he sees time that extends beyond his 318 college throws, that if he's in there week in and week out throughout this 2022 season with the proper support around him, they think that Trey Lance can raise the ceiling of their offense and of their football team by the time the playoffs roll around. That's the calculus. It wasn't going to happen last year. Trey was way too raw. They would have thrown away the season last year. But the 49ers, in their long-term plan, have said that Trey Lance can get them to a higher position by the end of this season if they go through the growing pains now. And that's why having a good roster around Trey Lance is so important, because that good roster can help you shield the quarterback from the growing pains as the season begins. Now, obviously, it didn't go well in week 1 because they committed 12 penalties for 100 yards. That much is obvious. It didn't go well. So what do we do when something doesn't go well? Do we just say, oh, well, toss the long-term plan out the window, let's start overreacting? Or do we realize that the 49ers factored in that some of this stuff wouldn't go well, especially for Trey Lance? So that's the gist of the situation here. I think that's what a lot of people are misunderstanding, or potentially even misunderstanding, because just like the 2021 bench Garoppolo knee-jerk reactions were wrong, and you saw what happened once Jimmy Garoppolo did hit that groove, once the 49ers did take off from that 3-5 record. I mean, he was their better option even when he was hurt last year. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. All of those, just like all of those were wrong, everything right now risks being wrong as well. Now, nobody knows the future. And I'll tell you what, this is one thing right here. The 49ers, if those of you who want Garoppolo at all costs, I'll guarantee you this. If Lance absolutely bombs, don't worry, Jimmy Garoppolo will start again. It's football. It's a meritocracy. If Lance is showing no progress, that's what the 49ers have to do. But the thing is that the 49ers believe in the long-term plan here, and they believe in Trey Lance's gradual development. So they're not going to make a knee-jerk reaction based on one game in the driving rain. And it's not like Trey Lance was terrible in that game either. He did a lot of good things. In fact, He did enough good things in the driving rain, from, that pass to Ray McLeod to some of the precision early on to, yes, some of the running ability, which is going to change the way that Kyle Shanahan calls games. He did enough in that game to, I think, warrant a take that's completely fair that says that he's on track as far as the long-term plan goes. All of a sudden, though, we've seen just at the snap of a finger, we've seen expectations change from reasonable ones of, it's going to take him some time. The 49ers have built in a full season of runway so that he can hopefully surpass Garoppolo's efficiency by the end of it. All of a sudden, everybody wants something right away. Not everybody. I shouldn't use everybody so liberally, but a lot of this noise online, a lot of this noise in the national media, all of a sudden it's this, oh my God, this needs to be happening immediately. If it doesn't happen immediately, for some reason, this is not working out. But the whole time, this was never going to happen immediately. That's why this was being repeated over and over again. The big problem of all of this, and I have two words here that I put down on the screen: homerdom and hatership. So some people are homers for a QB and some people are haters for a QB. And with the 49ers fan base, it somehow has turned into this black and white thing with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. You either, you love one of the guys, you hate the other guy, or vice versa. Well, a big problem of that, when people go so far down the emotional road of either hating one guy or loving the other, or lobbying for one guy and wanting the other guy benched no matter what, a huge problem is that they stop properly evaluating and stop objectively evaluating the rest of the football team. So a great example is the 49ers offensive line. When Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, they objectively didn't have a good pass protecting offensive line. That was a massive problem. But that was minimized by a lot of people over the past couple of years because they were so intent on hammering through their Garoppolo takes. So they disliked Garoppolo so much that they would never acknowledge that the offensive line was actually ranked number 26 in the NFL in pass block win rate, down at the same level in Pro Football Focus grade. Put on the tape, the 49ers offensive line struggled to pass protect, with Tom Compton filling in for Mike McGlinchey at right tackle, and the right guard position also not being good. Center was a turnstile in 2020. People just, there were so many people that just didn't acknowledge this, and it remained a glaring 49ers problem. Well, here in 2021, we have one game's worth of offensive line data, and the line was something I was hammering home all offseason. I'm saying, if this line is as shaky as it was in front of Jimmy Garoppolo for Trey Lance, it's going to be a big issue for the 49ers. They have to get better up front. And I was skeptical because they had a rookie in line to start at right guard and Spencer Burford. They had really a first-time starter at center in Jake Brendel, and another first-time starter in Aaron Banks, who couldn't crack the starting lineup last season, but is now the starting left guard in 2021. Well, what happened on Sunday in Chicago? Well, you wouldn't know it if you looked at a lot of social media, because there's people that already had these like predetermined, takes on Trey Lance. I'm talking about extreme in either direction, right? Some people are just gung-ho, this is going to be the guy. We don't even care about his development, or, we don't care about the trajectory of his development. That doesn't matter because he's going to be an obvious improvement right away. It doesn't take much to play quarterback in Shanahan's system. All these like crazy takes off in one direction, and there are all these Lance as a bust takes in the other direction. And it led to people not fairly evaluating an important variable that's very tied to Trey Lance in the offensive line. And what happened is that the truth is that the 49ers offensive line actually played decently well, especially the interior on Sunday. Now, it was complicated and there was nuance here, but unfortunately, all this nuance got lost in discussion, and I could talk about it right now. What you had is Spencer Burford playing an awesome game at right guard, especially for a rookie. Clean sheet, didn't give up a single pressure. Aaron Banks played a very passable game at left guard, gave up a big-time pressure early on. That was the only pressure he gave up out of a true pass set, and I thought he was blocking his ass off, especially in the run game for Trey Lance. He was moving people. Jake Brendel gave up a couple pressures. It's debatable, though, at that center position, what was his responsibility and what wasn't. Still, though, on the aggregate, the 49ers interior line, in my opinion, the biggest concern about this football team entering this season passed the week one test. They showed us that they can be a competent interior line in front of Trey Lance, and we cannot overstate how important that is for the 2022 season. In fact, I would venture to say that if you're the 49ers and you had to pick between the two, of course, you're going to always want to win. But if you had to pick between having a line that showed some promise, especially on the interior, coupled with a loss, versus a win and a line that was total crap, you would pick the loss with the line that showed some promise, because that's going to give you a more sustainable chance at good development for Trey Lance and more wins over the course of the season. So that interior line for the 49ers, absolutely, I thought was an arrow up in the aggregate, given how many worries there were entering the season. We'll see how they do moving forward. Ironically, the pressure came against Trent Williams. 3 pressures. He gave up the most pressures out of any 49ers offensive lineman, and against Mike McGlinchey, who gave up the lone sack. So I get that there are questions about McGlinchey. I don't think anybody's questioning Trent Williams. I don't think anybody's worried at all. Nobody's remotely worried about Trent Williams' performance moving forward. So that's actually, in a way, it's good news for the 49ers, right? If you can count on Trent Williams to be steady and stable moving forward, health permitting, and he's healthy right now, he can knock on wood if you don't like injuries. But if you can count on that, and then you saw what the interior line did, you saw that they showed some improvement with Burford and that good start, and Aaron Banks and Jake Brendel, well, then you got something to build on for Trey Lance moving forward. And obviously McGlinchey is still a question mark, but McGlinchey seems to, we don't want to get too far off topic. It seems that he's got that one terrible play a game that starts replaying on social media, and it's not really indicative of his whole game. Obviously, the 49ers don't want that one play to happen. They don't want him to get beaten cleanly in pass protection. But the overall picture is that the offensive line showed some real promise. They could maybe be an above-average unit as they develop over the course of this season. But with everybody so focused on either hating or loving Trey Lance, without just like looking at this in the context of the 49ers long-term plan, I felt that got buried under the, you just got buried under the current. And that's just too bad, because what the 49ers have done here is so intricate, so fascinating, in a way unprecedented, right? As a really good team trading up to draft Trey Lance at number 3, keeping the incumbent quarterback who had already taken them to the Super Bowl, who would take them to the NFC Championship game the very next year. All these moving pieces, the 49ers have found a way. I mean, look, I could put this up on the screen. Here they are. There's Garoppolo and Lance. They found a way to get the locker room to work together cohesively. I mean, it's great. Been this awesome business study. Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo actually like each other. Garoppolo took less money probably than he would have gotten had he just been sitting around right now waiting for the Cowboys to call him as a free agent to fill in for Dak Prescott. Garoppolo was willing to take less money to come be a backup with the 49ers. It's been a fascinating case study of how to build depth at the quarterback position. But because of, such an intense focus on emotions regarding one or the other, people have lost sight of the fact that the 49ers have this intricate plan that's binding all of this together. And because this plan is something that's going to happen over the longer term, we have to let it play out. And that's what the 49ers are going to do. They're not going to listen to your complaint on Twitter. They're not going to listen to somebody's rant on YouTube. They're going to let this play out as they should, because they've already done 1,000 small calculations moving to this point, saying, okay, this is where we insert Trey Lance. This is how we hope Trey Lance improves. This is where we hope that Trey Lance's efficiency overtakes Jimmy Garoppolo's. We hope that it happens before the end of the 2022 season so we could raise our ceiling and win a Super Bowl. I mean, you have to love the ambition. They might be wrong. It might blow up in their faces, but they're certainly not going to hit the eject button right now after one game in a monsoon. And that's what I put down here. One game in a monsoon will never be reason to doubt the 49ers' commitment to their long-term plan. This is the goal. This is what I've been talking about. The goal is for Lance to develop into a game-changing option by December and January. And the trick is that he's in the developmental phase where he has to play. So you might be giving up a little bit of efficiency right now. You really might be. Maybe Garoppolo, as the quarterback, does find a way to win that game in Chicago. Who knows? Maybe he does give the 49ers a little bit better chance against Seattle. Who knows? But again, the goal is for Lance to turn into a game-changing force by December or January, preferably sooner. And the 49ers believe they have enough of a roster around Trey Lance to support him in such a way that they can still win games, even if the efficiency is not optimal before then. The irritating thing right now, or the nauseating thing, is this. Why do we have to have a changing take on absolutely everything every single week? I get it. It's the nature of the NFL. But to me, it's just frustrating because I think this is such an interesting case study, what the 49ers are doing, this 2-year long-term plan, the transition from Garoppolo to Lance, that when people are just shouting and yelling and, knee-jerk reactions, and when they need to have a take, when they need to be heard, just because you can be heard on social media doesn't mean that you should be heard on social media. Just because you have a platform doesn't mean you should be using it. Like it's a situation where I feel that the more intricate, interesting dynamics of this are just being drowned out by people yelling Jimmy or Trey or bench Trey sucks, all this and all that. When the truth is we don't know yet. And we didn't expect to know yet. This should be the fun part of discovering what the 49ers have, discovering how the plan is working. But instead, we're just getting a yelling match. I could close with this. Steve Young joined the 49ers in 1987. He didn't start until 1992. Oh, he started in 91, but he didn't really start until 1992. 91, weird season for the 49ers. Illustration, though, is the same. It was a long developmental process for Steve Young. Josh Allen joined the Bills in 2018. Maybe I should change that right here. Let's get this text title right. Josh Allen joined the Buffalo Bills as a first-round draft pick in 2018, but he's a suboptimal passer till 2020. That's when he faced the 49ers in that Monday night game. And rumor has it that Kyle Shanahan decided that he wanted to go up and grab Trey Lance right after seeing what Josh Allen did to them on that night in Arizona. So it takes time. And the 49ers have acknowledged this. I probably said long-term plan 85 times during the course of this little spiel over the past 20 minutes, but I can't emphasize it enough. And, let's just not pretend that something needs instant gratification or is a short-term yelling match when in fact it has been an elongated process that we're still in the middle of, right? We're still in the middle of it. So we can wait and see how Trey Lance develops. At the very least, give him a chance to throw it in dry weather, which we may not have on Sunday, ironically, after the latest forecast came out at 40% rain. All right, let's move on to some other news. The 49ers signed Marlon Mack. Running back, I talked about this earlier. He's on the practice squad. It's a cool little YouTube video right here that we can watch of Marlon Mack running against the 49ers. And this was in week 3 of the preseason. So here we go. Play this on the big screen. See Mack kind of shoot out the left side of the line there. And the tackle, funny enough, is made by Tashawn Gibson, who got promoted from the practice squad to the active roster today. So it's Tashawn Gibson, 31. His roster move actually made room for Marlon Mack on the practice squad. So Mack had an Achilles injury in 2020. That was after his 1,100-yard season in 2019. I think he shows decent burst on a couple of these runs against the 49ers. Remember, it's not against starters, though. And, this is no risk, high reward. He's on the practice squad. 212-pound back, fits in with the size profile that the 49ers are looking for. It's just one of those things where we'll see how he does. But they needed 4 running backs, and now they have 4 healthy running backs after the Elijah Mitchell injury and him heading to IR. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Remember, the most popular person in town is the backup quarterback. We definitely saw that firsthand last year, and we're seeing it again firsthand this year. We have a perfect case study. Garoppolo was QB1 last year. Lance is QB1 this year. They have traded places, and you could tell the vitriol always comes pouring in on QB1. But the 49ers don't care. The 49ers are insulated from this kind of stuff, and if you just understand their thought process throughout this, maybe you'll get into fewer yelling matches on Twitter or wherever else you're arguing about the 49ers' current quarterback situation. It comes with the territory, but I just encourage everybody to appreciate what the 49ers have. And what the 49ers have is, I think they have a pretty damn cool setup right now. I think, hey, it may work, it may not work with Trey Lance, but you've got these 2 guys on the roster. You had the guy on the right take it to the NFC Championship game last year, even though he was pretty badly hurt. That was a good story. And now Trey Lance can make more good stories. And maybe we haven't seen the end of Jimmy Garoppolo because, hey, another thing is Trey's running a whole hell of a lot, taking a lot of bruises. So depth in the quarterback room. is important, and the 49ers certainly have it. So we'll see how they leverage it. But again, the long-term plan is to get Trey Lance ready to be a star by the end of this season so the 49ers can take their game to the next level. So have patience. Let's see what happens, and let's not judge stuff too quickly, because knee-jerk reactions in this kind of situation, those tend to be wrong. All the knee-jerk reactions last year were wrong. So many of them. So don't put yourself into that compromised position again. All right, everybody take care. Thanks for watching today. Like the video, sub to the channel. Talk soon.